All right.
Hey Pete,
Hey man, how you been, dude?
how are you?
Good,
All
bro.
good.
Been a long time. Where are you?
I'm in New York.
Okay. What are you hoping that Jets helmet gets you a Super Bowl if you put it in the background? You rub the top of it or something?
This, this is my trophy room. You got it.
Yeah, gotcha. We might wait for a couple more people to come in before we do that. Alex, how's your when's your openings looking like happening? Do you have a date yet?
Still have a lease. I'm this close on the lease terms at least, but not the date. I'm leaving it open right now because I'm telling the guy I don't know when we're gonna start this thing.
Yeah.
As you said, probably toward the end of the year. But they're very flexible with the all the terms are a lot more flexible than they were about 10 weeks ago. I can tell you that.
Yeah. I think
Much
they're gonna
better.
I think the next month they'll probably even get more flexible. What I was going to do here, I mean, why don't we I'll just kick it off and see who else joins us. But a couple of things, just some anecdotal information that's been coming out of some of our clients. The groups that have opened up in Oklahoma saw a slight increase in cancellations, but literally like less than 50 people on the first day of opening. Their ancillary revenue is down about 25%. So like their retail and their pro shop went from 1,600 down to 1,000. New member joins is actually tracking the same as it was last May. So there's clearly pent up demand. And in some of the cancellations where people are coming trying to cancel, it's mostly out of just fear of coming in now. It's not like that they've changed their habits. So most of the groups that I've talked to said that if you offer somebody a 60 or 90-day freeze, that you actually don't lose them, but they just don't want it being billed on their credit card when they're just not comfortable coming in yet. And then yesterday, Chris Rondo from Planet was on Jim Cramer, Gannon. You can get that link. I just watched it. He said that they're basically doing no marketing right now, so they're almost even like in a soft launch period. Their new member joins are literally at par with what they were last May. They saw a slight cancellation increase, which is pretty unbelievable. And, just talked about like the health of their network. They got an average of 15 to 20 franchisees, 15 to 20 locations per franchisee. They got a lot of private equity in the market, in their market network. And, he thinks that with some of the closures that are happening and some of the issues that 24 and Gold and some of these other groups are going to have, that he thinks that their growth plans from number of new locations is actually going to be closer to what they're going to do in 3 to 5 years, that they're going to be able to do over the next 12 months by taking over locations that are closing, or where the leases get expunged in a bankruptcy and then come and negotiate a new deal with the landlords. So
Hey,
the
do you
first
think they're going to have to raise their price if you got 6,000 members and you can only house 3,000 in 24,000 feet based on usage, or you think they're going to limit usage, or how are they going to figure this thing out?
I think it's going to be state by state. I mean, yeah, we talked about that last time. If it's like 25% or 50% of the fire occupancy ordinance, or if it's a percentage of your member base. But he didn't mention any kind of staggered, like turning people away. I'm assuming that's got to happen at some point.
Yeah.
And I know a number of clubs are using the, you got to do a reservation, so you got to actually reserve your spot to go into the gym. So that's the anecdotal evidence that we've gotten so far, which is much better than what I had assumed it would be. The other part that is going on right now, there's only a couple people on this call right now. Jeremy, you got your studio still?
Yeah. So we have our 5 locations, and we're thinking about our opening plan right now. We typically have 16 megaformers or machines, so we're actually going to take some of them out, and there's already probably about 3 feet in between them. But by taking 1 or 2 out, we'll kind of be able to have 5 or 6 feet, and then we're going to turn them opposite from each other. This way someone's feet, right, are kind of, you have people's feet that are at each other as opposed to people's faces. Look, I mean, it's going to limit, obviously we're much more sensitive because, we live and die on every single head. So, our utilization will slightly come up just because there's less beds, but, our opportunity for sales are going to slightly come down. So.
Yeah. The one thing that I've been spending a lot of time on with 2 clients is going through. I mean, I got a client that's got 50 leases, and we're just trying to figure out the negotiating strategy with each one. So, before you go into your discussions, you've probably done this already because you got the background of knowing what to know and what not to know going into those conversations. But I'm working with one group to try and figure out, all right, what's the landlord's real negotiating leverage and position? One is, do they have a corporate guarantee on the lease or do they not? So, if that's something where you're trying to get 3 months of rent forgiveness as well as some kind of percentage of rent deal, what will the landlord need to accept that, or do they have you over the barrel for one reason or another because there's a guarantee and you can't really leave? So that's one, because one of my clients has set up all different LLCs and basically can bankrupt an LLC without it affecting the rest of the corporate. So that's one thing that's happening. The second thing is that if your lease is really strong, one of my clients, we were talking about the negotiating strategy, and one of the clubs had like 10% lease to revenue. And what we were going to do is we were going to go and say, okay, let's do it pegged on what February was. So we were at 100,000 on $1 million of revenue, that we're at 10%. And we decided, you know what, that's not a metric that we want to actually share with the landlord, because that's more of like a Dunkin' Donuts landlord lease. Typically clubs are into 20 to 30% lease to revenue. So we decided on that one, let's go back and just say, hey, we're at $10 per square foot. We want to get down to 8 or 9, but we're not going to go back and basically show our cards because our cards are already so good that we don't want the landlord to say, hey, look, you actually should owe me money because you're at an undervalued lease. And then also looking at who the potential competitors are that have the ability to come in and actually take over those locations. A lot of the HVLP 2.0 players that have big debt financing packages that were the darlings of the industry and were growing quickly, without naming names, their covenants are completely out of whack right now from a debt to trailing EBITDA or a debt to embedded EBITDA. So the idea of like an embedded EBITDA, which for those on the phone, calculating, say, if I put a shovel in the ground, then that club's worth $750,000 after I build it. In EBITDA, I'll multiply by 6 times, and that's like a $6 million enterprise value club. And locations were being able to get $3 million or $4 million of debt associated with that one club's potential. Like all those embedded future EBITDA numbers are out the window for a long time.
Yeah.
So a lot of those groups are not going to be able to go to their debt providers and say, hey, I'm at, I was at 4 times leverage. Now I'm at 10. Do you mind if I go and take over another 5 clubs and build out? There's going to be a hard pause on development. LA Fitness, I think, might have the opportunity to take over some clubs and be aggressive, but I don't think that they're going to take that tact. And I think everyone's going to be really cautious. So I think the landlords are in a pretty rough negotiating position. But I would say that if you have a golden lease, be delicate with it like a golden egg, and don't try to treat every landlord the same in negotiations that you have, because it could come back to bite you, or you could disclose financial information that the landlord isn't privy to now and doesn't need to be privy to later, but just present each one of those as a case-by-case basis. So, Fowler, do you have any anything that you
I got 2 small things. Yeah, thanks, Pete. So I connected yesterday with a landlord that has Blink Corporate as a tenant, and they are asking for 6 free months at this time. Just if that helps Alex or anybody. Now, I don't know if that's across the board. I think Blink is smart enough to say, okay, I need 6 months from this landlord and 4 from the other, the golden egg guy, and, the other one to throw the keys on the table. So, but, I thought that was the ask, 6 months. They're willing to sign off on it. I thought that was a decent, piece of information there. I just wonder if the HVLP models, if they're going to have less members in the gym, a lower member base, if it's not a time for them to evaluate that 10 or 12 or 11 or $15 price point. And I haven't seen anybody move on that yet, but I'm not going to be surprised if the limitations are as such. And then the last thing, it's amazing. Think of all the leases that we've all looked at. I don't ever recall one ever saying or asking for to freeze the rent if they're forced to not open. And I think we're going to see that as part of an addendum for any leases going forward or any renewals. And I don't know how the landlords are going to respond to that, but it's definitely, what do you think, Pete? It's got to be something you got to put into your new leases, right? Because you're in the unknown. If you're signing a lease now or renewing a lease or extending a lease, you want to be protected and you want to put that clause in there. I don't know how that's going to be received.
Yeah, so
we actually
Drew.
just signed a brand new lease right now. Apologies for interrupting, Pete.
No, please.
I actually put specific language in that the landlord agreed to, and this is an institutional landlord that basically says, if required to, if the location is required to be shut down by government mandate, and you're kind of closed for a period of 5 days or more, then you're under no obligation to pay rent. So far so good, and they actually didn't give us any pushback on it. And we also, we were originally negotiating the lease kind of pre-coronavirus. We actually were able to negotiate really substantial rent reductions, kind of on a go-forward basis, because I think that landlords are finally now coming around to the reality of, that volumes are not going to be what they were before. So
Yeah, this is getting done in the force majeure clause. Alex, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say this is a huge problem for my Pure Bar location. This guy is like not moving, and I don't know what to do. I'm just like, he's insane. I've been paying him CAM and taxes for the last two months, and he wants to full boat. And anyway, I just wanted to say that. Really
What
challenging.
what you got a personal guarantee on the lease?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
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 I mean, there was a letter, Ganlon. Why don't you just send it out to the folks on this call directly? I don't want to use their name because it's being recorded, but it's one of the biggest health club chains in the country. We got a copy of the letter that they had sent out to their landlords, and I had originally thought it was going to be an empathy letter saying like, "Hey, we got shut down. Can you work with me?" And it was polar opposite to that. It was, in my lease, it says that I have unfettered right to the premises. I do not have the right to get into the premises, and you actually owe me 2 weeks of rent in March as a credit back to me. And secondly,
Wow.
yeah, so Dave, send that to Alex and to Jeremy. The second clause was, there's a provision in every lease that talks about the quiet enjoyment and use of a facility without interruption. So they basically called a breach on that as well. They also said that we're not going to open any locations and we're not paying you rent until we deem it safe to use your premises. So it basically turned everything around to say, hey, we're actually not in breach. Landlord, you're at breach for my right to access your space. And they got a pretty strong legal team, and they went through meticulously every clause and basically said, we're going to have a conversation with you, but here's what be prepared, because this is our negotiating perspective, and we're the biggest or one of the biggest players in the space, and you're at default, I'm not. So it was definitely an interesting read and an interesting tactic that they deployed out of the gate.
Wow,
Ganlon,
that'd
you
be
have
amazing.
that one? You have that letter, or I'll resend it to you.
Yeah, I don't have it handy.
Yeah, I got it. Okay,
Okay.
I'll resend it around. Okay. So Alex, we're happy to talk to you offline if you want after you read that letter.
Yeah.
See if, we can
awesome.
be helpful in negotiating
you.
that. I mean, I don't want to be your lawyer, but
No.
happy to be,
Yeah.
you're in the square now. So, I mean, we got to take care of you, get protected by the square. And then Jeremy, let us know if there's anything that we can be helpful with. And Fowler works with a lot of the boutique guys around here, and he's on the board of Switch Playground. That's an investment that we made.
Great. Oh,
So,
cool.
We've
Great
got,
concept.
we're happy to share any of like our tactics with you, or like how we're doing the spacing. Just so we got like sharing best practices.
That'd be great.
Denise, how you been? Good. All right, cool. All right, Chris, we're gonna do your webinar hopefully next week. Hey, Denise, how you doing?
I have something to say. It's sort of, I haven't been on all this. Hi, guys. And I wish you all the best through this time. What's really interesting to me is that a lot of the conversations are about the challenges, right, that everybody's facing, because that's really the crisis for the moment. But where do you see opportunities? Because you're talking to so many people, like, what's the other conversation? Sort of, so I am a serial entrepreneur, a marketer, I connect dots and go in strategically for Pete and other people, whatever. And so I listen to you and I think, I'm not pitching, how can I be of service to Pete? Sort of, so Pete, where do you see some opportunities to be strategic or creative, or that's not really critical right now yet?
Yeah, so a couple of things have been going on. Great question, and thank you. I don't have anything specifically related to what your expertise. By the way, Denise has been a friend for a long time and is one of the leaders in the beauty and cosmetic space and anything on the consumer product side that we've worked on together. But the opportunity, I think, one is it was definitely a big wake up call, and Jeremy will probably echo this, for all the studios to say, hey, look, I got to get my workouts online and I got to get a tighter connection with my members. So I think the first wave was kind of, ad hoc. Let's try and like throw some Zoom videos up there. And some of those were like chaotic. We've got an investment in a company called Greco Fitness. They've created like their entire online platform. They got 1,000 people paying $99 a month. They're doing live workouts. What's authentic about their workout and they've benefited from is that it's all functional training. So you don't need a treadmill, you don't need a rower. They basically were doing the exercises.
Right.
It looked like random things that people had in their house. So like, hey, if you don't have dumbbells, you can use 2 Essentia, 2-liter bottles of water. If you want to, get a suitcase or get like a duffel bag. So they're basically doing all the workouts catered to the home. And it's been wildly successful for them, but it's very professionally done.
Yeah.
And they bought some really big screens. So they've totally pivoted to the point where they really are now like an omni-channel, if that's the right term, an omni-channel provider. And there's no way they would have even thought about spending the time or energy or resources doing that if this didn't happen. So I think that's a key. I think the second thing is everyone's been watching what Peloton's been doing and saying like, that thing's worth $13 billion if I had the guts to short it. I mean, it's a wildly short opportunity, but you might get clipped on the way because people think that, Peloton's going to have 10 million subscribers, which they're not. But what I think it's also raised the idea of health clubs and boutique fitness studios. Jeremy, it's probably too expensive for somebody to buy a Pilates machine, but maybe they had some kind of, like bands and, a mat or some kind of board. And maybe that becomes part of the membership. So like going forward, if this happens again, like I'm actually not going to pay my rent, but I'm going to keep billing my members because I'm going to do things in the park. If I could find a park area, even if it's just a marketing tool to say, hey, look, we're still open. We just can't go into the location and neither can you.
Right.
So like Jeremy, if you had like MDR and you said, hey, look, for an extra, we're thinking about doing this with one of our clients, like for an extra $59 a month on top of your membership, we will actually deliver to you like a watered down Pilates machine that might cost us like $800, but it functionally can do everything you need to do. Or if you can't get into the location. So I'm taking my membership from like a 19 or a 29, and I'm basically having like a menu that says, all right, you want a rower? Do you want elliptical? Do you want a treadmill? We'll drop ship it to your house. And then every quarter, you can basically just hit on the mobile app, like, hey, come pick up my rower and give me a treadmill. You know, so if we can get to that level, which, you know, right now feels like, shit, I'm like going to become like a distribution company and I'm going to have to finance home equipment.
Yeah.
That creates potential financial.
So one of the things I'm hearing, if I can just interject, because you know the marketer, creative person, is that there is an opportunity for a different relationship direct to consumer, right? A different way of communicating with your clients and your members and whatever, and creating novel, new, creative ways to do that, whether it's, you know, Instagram or YouTube or Zoom or classes or whatever, but also more attention to the voice, like carving yourself in a new voice and sort of reaching out to whoever your creative alliances are to sort of help you carve that and then become relevant today and then for the future. Because
I totally agree. And I think, you know, I'll just keep referencing Jeremy or even, you know, Alex.
Hi,
who's got
Jeremy.
the Pure Bar.
Hey,
You know,
nice to meet
Jeremy's
you.
got MDR, which is one of the top, like, it's on a Legree machine or no?
Yeah, it's Legree machines.
Yes, it's
They're like
Legree.
350 pounds each one.
Yeah,
Which one is it? Which one is it?
It's called Studio MDR. It's kind of like the concept in New York, SLT, same
Right.
license concept. We license the machine from the licensor.
Okay.
Yeah, so the interesting difference in the conversation is what I'm trying to tell our clients, which I've been telling them for years, but they haven't been listening, is like, if you're a health club, you're the authority on fitness and nutrition for that member. Whereas a health club owner would say, I got a box, I'm basically got a good lease, I got the equipment in here, and I provide people access. And people that want personal training, I got a stronger relationship with. And people that want group exercise, I got like an intermediate relationship with. But they never really embrace the fact like that they are the authority on anything that people are doing for exercise. So now I think you kind of say, what's the opportunity? It's like, wow, I can actually be who I want to be, and I can talk to people through their mobile, you know, through online. And if they want to come into the club, that's great, but it's not a requirement anymore. It's like, how do they want to consume what I'm the authority on that I could give them? So I think there's a complete paradigm shift there. So I'm glad you brought it up. And also some of the things that are going on inside the club, you know, Chris is on mute right now. He's one of the top guys at Precor, but like the fact that, you know, you can't go into every single club in the country and like swipe your phone club without actually physically handing something to a $12 a day, an hour employee, and them giving it back to you, and them like taking a towel and then handing you a towel. Like, that's just inefficient operations. Like, forget about COVID, you know, like, why would you ever like have that as part of your, like, I'm like an anal process guy. Like, okay, how do you move people from when they walk in to get to where they want? Like, any obstacle that you have there is a waste of time and it's a waste of labor, and it's a contact point. All they should be doing is saying, like, there was a guy in Wichita, Chris knows him, the guy that owns Genesis Health Clubs, and I said, you know, what things do your front desk people have to do? And he said, the only thing they are responsible for is every member that comes in, they say, I want to make that person feel important. So I'm going to look them in the eye, I'm going to wish them a happy day, and I'm going to see if I can be helpful. And that's it. Like, that's my main goal. So it shouldn't be scanning you in. It should be all on the mobile app. You should be able to pick up your own towel so nobody else touches it. So all these like process and like supply chain components are all going to get cleaned up, which they should have gotten cleaned up years ago. Like, when you got a ticket to an airplane, you don't have to, you know, I'm not going to put it down on the thing anymore, but I'll hover it over, you know, the gate check-in. But all those things are now going to happen because we're forced to, but they're actually the right way to operate the business anyway. You know, so I think there's a benefit and opportunity there. So I'm glad you brought that up, Denise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Thanks. Appreciate you.
Pete, I think one of the biggest issues we're having on the digital side is, you know, everyone's doing the whole Zoom thing, but the quality of the content, it's not that great. And especially when when you're charging $10 or $15 for a class, and then you can go on the Peloton app and have beautifully, you know, curated content for $50 a month, you know, how do you kind of take it to the next level without spending a significant amount of money on cameras and space and all that equipment and all the back end stuff? And then how do you kind of make the pricing competitive, right? Because it's obviously hard to compete with the bigger guys. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. But it seems like we're going to have to spend, $40, $50, $60,000 just as a baseline, just to kind of have nicer content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. We looked at a couple of things in this space. We've been, and I've got a call with them today, but, Forte, we're looking at some of our concepts. We're almost like Hulu, where, Jet Sweat, we can have Forte, that, seems to have some really cool camera angles and, some other features to bolt on there. But I think there's two, real quick, to Denise's question, I think there's two opportunities, if I may pile on there, Pete. One
Sure.
is, I'm not going to be surprised if you see an existing studio go out, and then they're going to put some mirrors in there, they're going to put some Pelotons in there, they're going to put some, some real cutting edge stuff that you wouldn't normally be able to get at your house. And you're going to be able to, instead of spending $59 for one of the modalities, you're going to be able to reserve, buy 500 minutes, reserve these pieces on a half hour. You're going to have your own space. You got your full body workout in a studio where you're not limited to just a Peloton bike in your house. And I think, I haven't ran the numbers yet, but the amount of equipment you can get into 1,000 square feet, where you might not even need a front desk person. It could be a very simple wand-in model, get on your unit. It's all videotaped so that you can see your operation. But whether it's in a mall or in a studio or in an office building or at the airport, I think this is an opportunity. The last one is with the PPP, we're looking at our clients saying, okay, 75%'s got to be put into payroll. Pete, you and I scrubbed enough models in this space. When we look at payroll as a percent of revenue, what they're paying instructors. So there's a reset button now where if they can cut their payroll by 25%, and in some businesses, it's going to be fairly simple to do so by just reintroducing what the new rate is. And the new rate has a new expectation where the instructor's not just teaching, they're coming in, they're checking people in, they're setting up the equipment, they're helping with the cleaning and the organization. It's, and 24 actually looked at this now, figuring out how they can leverage their instructors to engage more because the connectivity that they have with their members. So I think you're going to see that space. And what we're doing for some of our clients is we're saying, and hey, here's a limited amount of classes. Here's what we're paying for those classes when we reopen. Are you interested in this? And there's a different expectation for their pay, and there's also a different expectation for their delivery. Because, we did a blind share of what people are paying instructors, and it's all over the place, $55, $40, up to $155. And when you look at some models, when you say, okay, wow, they're averaging $100 per class, this other model's averaging $65, they're both comparable product, how are they doing that? Is 100 too much? Anyways, and with all the bonuses that people get, so you got to restructure all the comp. But 25%, if you can, in a year from now, have your instructor payroll lower, and I might be upsetting some people on this call by saying that, but there's an opportunity there, Denise, I believe.
So can I just respond quickly? I have 3 observations to Jeremy and to David. Number one, so Jeremy, in terms of content production, that you may have to get into in creative, whatever. So, film, movie, all of that industry is sort of in an interesting place right now because you can't have films, people kissing each other and holding their hands and all. So there's a lot of really talented, skilled people out there who can't do their normal high-level production because of what it entails, right? Think of a movie where they're holding hands and kissing, and they're all figuring that out, and that's going to take some time, right? So in that, chaos is an opportunity to get really high level skilled people to do it, right? That's sort of one of the things. The other thing I would say is like in terms of how do I break through and how do I compete, you know, whether it's, very fine creative content or otherwise, you know, alliances are going to be more important now than ever. So who's already doing it that you can offer something through and sort of do something with them, if you know what I'm saying, where they've got a consumer base. And, you know, you probably know this, but there's a lot of people doing a lot of things that you can sort of say, hey, I'll do this with you. I'll market through you. So strategic marketing with them, right? Which maybe wasn't as important in the past. And then finally, you know, there is sort of, if you're watching, you know, to sort of David's comment or whatever, and just in general, you know, this sort of homegrown feeling, right? You know, even Jimmy Fallon, who started it with his Tonight Show at home, and now they all followed. I watch people's behavioral patterns and how they change. And there will be a lot of people who are enjoying that more familiar, more personal approach than the out of the box, spit and polish, whatever. That will continue as a trend because everybody's enjoying it, right? You've got all of the television shows, like Zoom can become a content provider. I mean, I think that'll probably happen if somebody's not speaking to them already. But in terms of a more personal approach or whatever, that's not going to go away even when everyone's up and running because people's tastes are changing right now. Am I making a little bit of sense? So, you know, it's really finding your own voice and where you want to be. Not everyone has to be Peloton, right? Jimmy Fallon was at, the Tonight Show, all cameras and edited and whatever, and he's now doing it from his home, you know, in the Hamptons, and it's fabulous. And he started it and everyone else followed. And so I think that taste level will still be available for people who want to be in that voice. Pete, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I think that's right. I mean, we've been pitching everyone in the health club industry for 20 years, you know, give us 3 weeks and we'll change your behavior and change your life. And now we're on week 10 of doing the opposite. So we got some habits to re-ingrain. Just in closing here, just in the interest of everybody's time, Jeremy, one interesting stat that I saw at on the Peloton press release, only 10% of their subscriber base uses the live programs. So 90% of the people are going on and actually just accessing the library. So when you think about what your costs could be, like if you fill a library up with your best instructors, you know, cut a one-time deal with them so they're not on a recurring, you know, benefit of that. And you have like 50 or 100 that you like literally crank out, you know, in a couple weeks, and then just add a live one up there like every, you know, once a week or make it special. Like it's not going to matter. I thought it mattered more until I saw that stat, and it like blew me away because I thought people were using Peloton because they want to stay on a structured, you know, routine. Like, oh, I want to take the 8 o'clock class with my friends and compete against other people, and this is my instructor. It's not working that way. So that was a really interesting takeaway. Then the second thing to think about is I took a solid core class a couple months ago, right before the closure in New York, and they had one front desk person, which was the instructor. And then during the class, they locked the door. So I don't know if you do that, but they basically took their labor from 2 people down to 1. And Alex, you might want to do the same thing if there's not a lot of
we've done that already.
Yeah,
we're actually short staffed before we closed, like back in January, and I'm like, you know, that's exactly what we did. It was fine, you know.
Yeah. So those are some of the things. We'll Alex and Jeremy, I just sent to Ganelin the lease letter that we got from one of the big competitors. I think you'll find it as a eye-opening approach. And, you know, I think you got to potentially negotiate with that level of stance and positioning, because if you go in there and ask for empathy, and that hasn't been successful, I think it's time to say, look, this is what the industry's at. And if you really want to try and go after my personal guarantee, you know, good luck. That'll take you a couple of years, and you're not going to rent this place out to anybody because there's going to be another 50% of the studios or hair salons or, express restaurants are going to go out of business. So if you want to keep me, like, you got to work with me. But each one of these, there's no governmental position like not Cuomo. I guess when they did the PPP program, they should have done it where they bailed out the commercial real estate and the retail residential guys and basically allowed them to pay their debt and then gave everyone a rent holiday. Like, the fact that didn't happen, that would take out most of the anxiety that is with all of our clients,
Yeah.
because
Exactly.
each one of these is
exactly.
like hand-to-hand combat. And somebody called me the other day and said, hey, my landlord's like this really aggressive Israeli guy. So I'm like, so he's basically a bully. And you're not willing to bully up to him. So, like, that's not a good negotiation, So anyway, we'll send that out to you. We'll keep you posted on any other updates. But overall, a lot of positive feedback coming out of Georgia and Oklahoma so far on the club openings. So hopefully, knock on wood, nobody like picks up and says, oh, I picked up the virus from my health club. And if that's not the case, then I think we're going to get back to, being 10 or 20% down, but not being, much further down than that. So have a good weekend. Thanks for everybody. Appreciate you. Thanks.
Thanks, Pete. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
Later.
Be well.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
Pete.
Bye.